I learned two things the moment I stepped into the auction ring. First, gravity is apparently optional in this part of the galaxy. Second, if you hang 3 Vulpine women upside down in public, someone is eventually going to object, and today, unfortunately, that someone was me. They were suspended by their ankles from a rotating grav frame, tails dangling, ears flushed a very undignified red. Not posed. Not presented. Just inverted. The auctioneer called it a compliance forward display method. I called it what it was, a cheap psychological trick that made prey species lose composure, orientation, and dignity all at once. I knew the technique because I'd been on the wrong end of it once. Long enough to know what it does to your thoughts when all the blood rushes somewhere it really shouldn't. Long enough to know that anyone who says you get used to it is lying through clenched teeth. The crowd didn't seem bothered. A few insectoids clicked approvingly. A reptilian buyer took notes. The auctioneer kept talking about temperament, obedience, and minimal resistance under sustained pressure. He said that last part while one of the Vulpine girls growled, trying unsuccessfully to wrap her tail around the stabilizer bar. That tail had impressive reach, considering the circumstances. I noticed before I wanted to. I told myself I was just assessing balance. Structural integrity. Center of mass. Very professional thoughts. Entirely unrelated to the fact that being upside down made everything harder to ignore. One of the girls caught me looking and bared her teeth. Not a smile. Not quite a threat either. More like a warning wrapped in sarcasm. "Enjoying the view, flat face?" she said, her voice strained but sharp. "I'm evaluating safety violations," I replied automatically. She snorted. "That's what they all say." The auctioneer waved a clawed hand. "Please ignore the merchandise's attempts at social engagement. Vocalization is common when circulation is redistributed." Redistributed. Right. That was one word for it. Another of the girls laughed, a short, breathless sound. "You hear that? We're merchandise now. Guess that explains the dangling." I didn't like how calm she sounded. Or how the third one wasn't laughing at all. The quiet one was watching me. Not pleading. Not angry. Just focused. Like she was measuring something. I shifted my weight. The floor's gravity felt heavier than it had a minute ago. "Why upside down?" I asked the auctioneer. "You could present them upright. Let potential buyers see posture. Muscle tone. You know. Practical things. Dominance psychology," the auctioneer replied smoothly. "Inversion reduces aggression, increases compliance, and exposes stress responses. Buyers appreciate honesty." "Funny," I said. "Where I come from, we call that torture with a marketing budget." A ripple of amusement passed through the crowd. The auctioneer's frill stiffened. "You are human," it said flatly. "Last I checked. That explains the discomfort. Humans possess inconvenient empathy." One of the Vulpine girls groaned. "See? I told you someone would notice." The quiet one finally spoke. "You took long enough. That earned my full attention." "Excuse me?" Her ears flicked toward the others. "Ignore her. Blood's going to her head." "That's rich," the first one muttered. "All of ours is." I clenched my jaw. This was exactly how it started last time. Jokes. Deflection. Waiting for someone to look away so the situation could become normal again. I didn't look away. The auctioneer cleared its throat sacs. "Shall we proceed? Lot 47. 3 adult Vulpine females. Adaptive. Resilient. Currently experiencing mild disorientation." "Mild," one of them echoed. "I'm seeing 3 of you and I don't like any of them." I raised a hand. "Hold." The grav frame paused mid-rotation. The girls swayed slightly, tails brushing each other. One hissed and muttered something about filing a complaint with the laws of physics. "You object?" the auctioneer asked. "I object to the method," I said. "Not the product. People. Whatever term you prefer." Semantic resistance noted. I'm serious, I said. Extended inversion can cause vascular stress, neurological impairment, loss of bladder control. That got their attention. The quiet one laughed this time. He's not wrong. The auctioneer hesitated. The crowd murmured. Someone behind me whispered, humans are strange. They worry about leakage. Look, I continued because stopping now felt worse than continuing. You want buyers to see how they behave under pressure? Fine. But pressure doesn't have to mean upside down. One of the girls tilted her head as much as gravity allowed. You volunteering to demonstrate? I opened my mouth. Closed it. No. Shame, she said. You look like you'd panic adorably. The crowd laughed again. My face heated. I told myself it was anger. Definitely not embarrassment. That's when I saw it. Just above the collar of the quiet one's suit, where fabric had slipped due to gravity, there was a faint line of ink. Old. Deliberate. Hidden unless you knew to look from the wrong angle. My stomach dropped. The world did that thing where sound dulls and your pulse gets loud. The joke died halfway to my tongue. I'd seen that mark before. Not on a wall. Not in a book. On hands that cut me down when I was upside down and running out of time. On people who didn't say their names because names were dangerous. That wasn't decoration. That was a promise. I swallowed. Auctioneer, I said carefully. How long have they been displayed like this? Long enough. The first girl snapped. The quiet one met my eyes. Just once. Just long enough to confirm what I already knew. They weren't hung for sale. They were hung to be seen. And suddenly, all the blood rushing to my head made a terrible kind of sense. I kept my hands where everyone could see them, mostly because I wasn't sure what the appropriate human response to inverted fox girls was. One of them, the one with ears that flicked like radar, tilted her head and studied me with that dangerous kind of curiosity. The kind that says, I can see right through you, and I will. Stop staring, she said, her voice low but sharp. Or at least be honest about why. I'm assessing, I replied immediately. It's procedural. Blood flow, tail distribution, general, alignment. She snorted. Alignment? That's your professional excuse? Very professional, I insisted. You'd be surprised how many humans ignore circulatory science until it's too late. The auctioneer's frills quivered in amusement. You humans are excessively literal and unhelpful in social contexts. Social contexts? I muttered. Yeah, because watching someone hang upside down counts as polite introduction. One of the other Vulpine girls laughed, a short, sharp sound that made the grav frame wobble slightly. You're funny when you panic, she said. I'm not panicking, I said. My voice cracked slightly. I'm, calculating risk. Calculating risk? The first girl repeated, her tail swishing with mock impatience. You've been staring at us for 3 minutes straight. That's long enough to notice when someone's hiding something. I am hiding nothing, I said quickly. Nothing at all. Absolutely, nothing. The quiet one, the one with the tattoo partially exposed, didn't speak. She just watched me. Intently. Like she knew something I had forgotten. Her gaze felt heavy, magnetic, accusatory, and somehow amusing all at once. I cleared my throat. Look, I'm not here to buy anything. Not the display, not the merchandise, not, any human incomprehensible exchange of property. The auctioneer clicked its mandibles. Clarify, you object to the lot? I object to the method, I said, trying to keep my tone calm. Inversion without consent is medically ill-advised. And ethically questionable. The first girl smirked despite herself. Ethics, she said. Humans love that word. Especially when it's inconvenient. I assure you, I said. My concern is purely procedural. Circulation. Nerve compression. Tail alignment. Possibly dignity. The auctioneer made a noise somewhere between a cough and a laugh. Your species is baffling. You argue, intervene, and simultaneously make social observations about creatures you barely understand. I do, I admitted. We humans are relentless that way. Especially when someone's dangling upside down and everyone else thinks it's fine. The first girl's ears twitched. So that's why you can't stop staring. I know. I am staring with caution. It's a professional hazard, I said quickly, wishing I could hide the sudden warmth in my chest. The quiet one shifted slightly. Gravity was not on our side, but she managed to move just enough for me to see more of the tattoo. Old, precise, a mark that spoke across species and time. My stomach twisted. The symbol was unmistakable. Extraction mark. Human resistance. The people who had saved me from hanging upside down once before. People who didn't wait for permission, who just acted. I wanted to say something clever. Something that would disguise the fact that seeing that mark made everything else vanish. But the girls were faster. You recognize it, the quiet one said, voice flat but undeniable. I do, I admitted. The first girl's tail flicked in amusement. You're bad at hiding, aren't you? Professional discretion is tricky, I said. Especially when you're, uncomfortably familiar. They laughed in tandem, tails brushing awkwardly against each other. The auctioneer looked confused. Explain, human. It's a long story, I said. Involving captivity, extraction, survival, and apparently a tattoo that doesn't forgive forgetfulness. The quiet one's lips quirked up at the corner. You've been upside down before, too, she said. We didn't forget. My throat tightened. Humor died halfway. This wasn't a joke anymore. And yet it had to be, because the alternative was too serious to manage. So, I said, forcing levity, you engineered this entire display knowing I'd react? Yes, the first girl said. And yes, you did exactly what we thought you would. Fluster, object, and stare. I caught myself. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or annoyed. Why not both? One of them suggested, and the quiet one's eyes glimmered with a sharp edge of amusement. I'm human, I muttered. We excel at both. The auctioneer cleared its throat. Recommendation: proceed with humane retrieval? I think so, I said. And while you figure out your auction ethics, I'll figure out mine. The quiet one tilted her head, showing just enough of the tattoo to make me feel simultaneously relieved and unsettled. It was a silent acknowledgement, a private joke, and a warning. I nodded. I see it. Loud and clear. Not decoration. A promise. The other two exchanged looks, tails flicking in amusement. He finally gets it, one muttered. And in that moment, I realized, humans don't always save people because they're strong. Sometimes we save them because we can't stop ourselves from noticing when things are wrong. Even upside down. The tattoo burned itself into my memory before my eyes even registered it fully. Just a flicker of the quiet one's inverted body, and there it was. Precise lines, subtle curves, a mark that only someone who'd survived hanging helpless and pinned would recognize. My pulse hit a strange rhythm, part adrenaline, part absurdity. Somehow, in the middle of an alien auction, I was both terrified and slightly amused. I remembered the first time I'd seen it years ago, inked on hands that were fast, efficient, and completely without sentiment. They had saved me then, cutting me down, murmuring a single word I barely understood, yet it meant the difference between living and, well, not. The same mark now peeked from beneath the Vulpine girl's uniform. Not meant to be visible. Not meant for most species. Meant for me. I cleared my throat. That mark! My voice faltered because it carried weight I wasn't prepared to explain. I've seen it before. I know what it means. The quiet one's gaze held mine, unwavering. It wasn't challenging me. It was confirming a memory, a shared secret across time and species. Her ears twitched slightly, an involuntary sign of satisfaction, maybe amusement. Or maybe she was testing me. I tried to speak again, but my humor kicked in before I could properly calibrate it. I didn't expect a reunion today. Especially not in this unconventional presentation format. A snort from the first girl. Unconventional? That's generous. We call it poor taste. You're being polite, I said. I appreciate it. The auctioneer blinked, or whatever counted as blinking. Clarify, is the human recognizing a symbol? Yes, I said, keeping it concise. It's human. It's intentional. And it's significant. The quiet one shifted slightly, testing gravity's limits, letting the tattoo show just enough. The angle was perfect, revealing only the top curve. Only someone who knew would notice. And I did. That mark isn't decoration, I muttered under my breath, almost to myself. It's a promise. The first girl raised an eyebrow. No, it was impossible for eyebrows to raise like humans, but the expression was close enough. Promise? That's dramatic. Only slightly, I admitted. It saved my life once before. Their laughter was quiet but deliberate, a mixture of amusement and recognition. The quiet one tilted her head, gaze steady. We knew you'd see it. That's why you were meant to be here. I blinked. Wait, you engineered this entire auction to, what? Test me? Not test, the quiet one said. Confirm. You remembered. You acted like a human would. You noticed when something was wrong. I tried to let humor slip through the tension. So basically, I'm both predictable and heroic. Excellent. The first girl snorted. Heroic? That's a generous interpretation of staring at us in distress for 10 minutes. Observational assessment. I corrected automatically. Completely professional. The auctioneer clicked its mandibles. Your species' definition of heroism is confounding. Yes, I said, but it's effective. A flick of her tail, just subtle enough, and the quiet one spoke again. We weren't on display. We were waiting. For you to notice. I swallowed, the absurdity of the situation sinking in. Hung upside down, among alien bidders, witnessing a reunion that somehow required no words, just recognition, timing, and a tattoo. And yet the humor of it, oh, the humor, was impossible to ignore. I've been hung like that before, I said quietly. Didn't think I'd see it again. You're lucky it wasn't permanent, the quiet one replied. A teasing edge crept into her voice despite the tension. You've got a twisted sense of timing, I said, shaking my head. Unbelievably twisted. We do what we must, she said lightly. Humans notice. Humans act. It's efficient. I smirked, despite the gravity. We notice, we act, and sometimes we stare too long. All part of the package. The first girl laughed, tail flicking. He finally understands. Or at least pretends to. I never pretend, I said. Mostly. The quiet one leaned slightly, not enough to be suggestive, but enough to let the mark catch the light just so. You see it. That's all that matters. And in that split second, everything clicked. The auction, the inversion, the alien misunderstanding, my reaction, all of it had been orchestrated. For me. Only me. A reunion disguised as chaos. I realized then that humans survive by noticing the things others overlook. By acting when most species would look away. By laughing at absurdity, even when the stakes are high. Even upside down. I took a deep breath, the kind that tells your body it's about to do something bold and mildly ridiculous, and I made my move. Not reckless, not impulsive, just precise, human, and stubbornly stubborn. I'll buy them, I announced. The words hit the air like gravity returning, and the auctioneer froze. Every alien in the room turned their attention to me. You what? It stammered. I said I'll buy them. I repeated, slower, clearer. But not for sale. I'm buying the display contract. You'll release them from suspension immediately. Any further presentation risks injury. Consider this humane retrieval under new ownership. The auctioneer clicked its mandibles in disbelief. You, humans, interpret legal constructs in unorthodox ways. Yes, I said. And it works remarkably well. I took a step closer to the grav frame. The Vulpine girls wobbled slightly, tails brushing, ears flicked nervously. The quiet one's gaze met mine. No challenge this time, just a steady acknowledgement. She'd played her part perfectly. The first girl muttered under her breath, tail flicking. I can't believe he actually said it. Believe it, I replied. I know your tactics. I know the tattoo. I'm aware of gravity. And apparently I'm stubborn enough to outmaneuver alien bureaucracy. They laughed quietly. A sound that was part amusement, part relief, tails swaying just enough to suggest satisfaction. The quiet one made no move to resist as I initiated the release protocol. One by one, the suspension cables disengaged. They dropped safely to the floor, landing lightly despite the height. The first girl groaned, rubbing her wrists. Finally. Upright. I've missed seeing people stand properly, I said dryly. You'd be amazed how much perspective matters when your head's 2 feet below your feet. The quiet one's lips quirked in a tiny smile. We knew you'd notice. And act, I added. Humans do that. We notice, we act, sometimes clumsily, sometimes boldly, always obnoxiously persistent. The auctioneer sputtered. You have disrupted the procedure, invalidated the lot, and saved a few lives, I interrupted. Call it what you will. I call it correct. The first girl tilted her head. You're bad at subtlety, aren't you? Professional hazard, I said. Humor helps when things get awkward. The quiet one stepped closer, exposing the tattoo fully now, a private acknowledgement between human and fox. Promise kept, she murmured. Yes, I said. Promise kept. And don't think you're off the hook just because the auctioneer is flustered. A small laugh escaped me, half disbelief, half relief. The other 2 girls exchanged looks, tails flicking in synchronized amusement. He really did it, the first one muttered. Yes, the quiet one said softly. Humans are strange. They stare, they object, and somehow they save the day. I shook my head. Strange, yes. Effective, also yes. Sometimes the absurdity is part of the plan. The auctioneer backed away slowly, mandibles clicking nervously. You humans, you operate on observation and stubborn ethics. Confounding and effective. I smiled. Exactly. The girls, now upright, moved with more natural grace. Their ears flicked, tails swished, and I realized they had engineered the entire situation knowing exactly how a human like me would respond. Clever, audacious, slightly terrifying, but effective. So, I said, exhaling, we're all upright, agreements honored, and chaos averted. Anyone care to explain why you didn't just do this in the first place? The quiet one's tail twitched in amusement. Because you wouldn't have noticed. I laughed, a low, human laugh that said yes, the absurdity of life could be exquisite. Fair enough. Lesson learned. Humans notice. Humans act. And humans occasionally win by simply refusing to look away. She smirked, and the others laughed softly. The auctioneer, meanwhile, still flustered, slowly retreated, leaving us to our upright, slightly victorious selves. I glanced at the tattoo one last time. Promise kept, life saved, perspective restored. Gravity, dignity, and humor, all intact. Even upside down, we had survived. But right side up? That was much, much better.